Hi, can you hear me? All right, welcome. Just close up a few things here. Great. Yeah, so today is going to be our last lecture. And what I was planning on doing today was to go over the upcoming second exam and walk with you on together through an exam from prior semesters. Let me share my screen. So just to go over the plan for the next couple of weeks. So today is the review for the final exam, and then on Friday the exam will be made available throughout the weekend. So you have Friday, then Saturday, and then Sunday evening for you to take the exam at your leisure. It'll be 100 minutes long. It is open book, and it's pseudo random, and that will be slightly different than anyone else's. Variable changes, a few things here and there that won't have any exam will be identical to another. They're all equally easy, as we'll go over it together today. Then the final project is due this Sunday, and then next week it'll be all grading the projects. So the grading will consist on you demonstrating the final project to ATA. And they'll just go over the requirements document that we discussed earlier, and they'll just ask you randomly to demonstrate certain features. They'll ask you to demonstrate that you can log in, that you can go to a profile screen, that you can search some third-party API, that you can go to a details page, that you can create relationships between users and domain objects, or between a user and another user, creating a one-to-many relationship, a many-to-many relationship. So basically, it's the requirements document, and they'll just ask you to demo the various features. So it'll be you driving your project. This is not going to be like the TA trying to break your project in any way. Obviously it'll be remote, right, over Zoom. I believe folks are registering for the demos. We do need to have everything graded by Friday so that we have time enough for the weekend to wrap things up for the Monday after that. Since we have to have grades by Monday morning, I believe. So we have to have everything wrapped up by the 16th, so that this will give you maybe 2-day buffer to for any emergencies, and have all the grades in by the 19th. You will see your grades I think on my NEU on the 20th, I believe. That makes the grades officially available. Let's see what else. I think that's it. Any questions? we require deploy? Yeah, no, I mean, yes, it'd be great if it's deployed on Heroku, but if you can't get it to work, I mean, that's fine if you demo it on a local machine.
Hi, Professor. I'm
Yeah.
asking this question because I saw there is one post on Piazza, and the TA replied shows that the final project required the Heroku link and also Netflix link. So because I remember last week you mentioned that it's not we could upload our final project to Heroku and Netflix, but it's not required, right?
Yes, I'll check with the TA, but again, ideally you have deployed it to Heroku or AWS. I know folks are having some issues, and
Yeah.
and prior, I've always required that the projects have been
Yeah, because
posted on
if
Heroku, but because Heroku is no longer free, then I'm not going to require. I'm not going to require it. This semester has been a little tumultuous. Since all my TAs were required to deploy all their projects to Heroku, so that's where they're speaking from. But yeah, no, this particular semester, because of the issue with Heroku not being free, I'm not going to require folks to deploy. But I know some folks have gone and actually paid for the service on their own. Also, some students have been able to apply for the student pack, and they've been able to deploy. If that's the case, that's great if you could demo it. But I'm not going to penalize you if you haven't been able to deploy it for. I'll make it clear with the TAs. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're meeting with the TAs tomorrow. All right. Yeah. So let's then start looking at a PDF I shared with all of you on Canvas. So this is the exam that I was going to use. It's basically a copy of the spring 2022 that I always bring that over and start tweaking it and adding new things and changing a few things. It does cover some material that we have not covered that is somewhat obsolete. So I'll just point that out. And also, there's some topics that we have covered brand new that are not listed here. So I'll point that out as well. So yeah, so there's some questions that are similar to the first exam, right? Some understanding of JavaScript and arrays. So this is identical to another question that was on the first exam. They'll probably be asked again, so make sure you understand these arrays. But very quickly, this is called the this dot 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 is called a spreader operator, and what it does is that it takes this this variable, and if it's an array, it will copy the content of that array into a new array. Or if it's an object, if YL is an object, then it will copy all the properties of that other object into this new object. So it can copy either arrays or it can copy also objects. So it can copy old arrays into new arrays or copy old objects into new objects. Right? So here it's copying all these elements, 85, 55, 67 into here. So this dot 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 YL ends up being all this content here. Then we have 9, 10, 11, and then WM. So WM is one thing, right? One thing is one big array that contains 4 elements So, but it itself, it's only one element. Okay, notice that it doesn't have the dot, dot, dot in front of it. So it's not copying all the elements into this new array. It's a mixed data type, right? Where you have some elements are numbers and another element is an array of numbers. So at the end of the day, this is going to be 5 elements plus 6, 7, 8, and then 9. So the length is 9. Chat, has this PDF been shared? I believe so, right? If you go to your module and the week, 13th week should be available. There should be a link that says exam to SP22 from last week. Obviously, the exam itself hasn't been made available, but this is from the spring. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. So here's another one, which is basically again the same, almost identical question from exam 1, where again we're using the spreader operator, but the first one was spreader operators used in arrays, whereas this was a spreader operator used in objects, right? So this is defining an object called ZW, and we are spreading ZW. That appears to be a different doc. What section are you in, Brian?
5610. I don't know if there's different sections.
There's 3 sections. There's let's see, let me show you. There's 11744.
11744.
Yeah, that's the document. That's where I'm currently at. This one.
Oh, I'm blind. I'm looking at the red link. Never mind. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So this one is so this is basically copying the elements of ZW, right, which is SK, DB, at the end of YG. So at the end, YG is going to have 4 elements, DB, CF, SK, and DB, right, all here at the end. Now, so that's what gets copied. Now, there's another feature in when you declare 2 properties that have the same name, last one wins, right? So because we're copying ZW at the end of YG, right? Notice that as ZW also has a DB. See that? So that means that YG has a DB, and I'm at the end. I am copying some other 2 properties. One of them has the same name as the prior one. So basically, it's overriding, right? This DB, because it's being declared later, right? It's overriding the original. This value of DB. LQ becomes really GP. Okay. So then YG, all of YG, which is now DB, which is called whose value is GP, CF, which is CG, right, and SK, is being copied into ZW. And so ZW ends up with all the elements of YG, which is equal to DB, CF, and SK, go here, right? Copied there. But then here, DB gets overwritten again, right? It was overwritten first by ZW, overriding YG. But then here we're overriding it back as XD. So at the end, it asks you, okay, well, what happened, right? Also notice CF here is overriding the CF from YG. So YG puts a CF in here, but this one overrides to FR. So at the end, it asks you, okay, what happened to CF, right? What did it end up being? Was it CG or was it FR, right? So since CF is later, right, here, then this must be FR, right? SK was never overwritten, so it turns out to be its original value of OR YG, it's asking you what DB was. This was overwritten by ZW. They must be GP. Right? So anyway, it's asking you all those three values. Okay. Yeah, just play around with it. Maybe do it in a little node project and just try them out. So consider 3 code snippets. And so this is H1, whose ID is K crew. K crew. H1. Is there an H1 here? Oh, there's several. there's several pieces of code. So what does H1 key crew display when you click on NL M something something something? Let's see. Let's take a look at this. So okay, so the root looks like the index.js is the root component, and it's creating a few routers. Right, first, it declares a link here, which it's asking us what happens when you click on that, right? And it declares a single route. And the single route says that I am at the root, right? When there's nothing in the defaults, right? It renders, when this component renders, it renders HWWPO. So it renders this guy down here. So, but HWFPO itself declares another route, right? That says that pattern matches. So this renders a route, okay? That pattern matches the URL from the root, that if it starts with VG something, 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 which matches the link, look at that, right? Matches the link with parameters, right? DBM and SR. So presumably this 10 and this 3 are going to be mapped to DBM and SR, right? So if you click on that link, basically it matches this route and it renders BUI something, 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 right? So it renders this guy down here. It renders this guy. But when you navigate there, you navigate there with this URL, with these values substituted with 10 and 3. So DBM and SR are 10 and 3. So when BUJ something something gets rendered, use params parses out these path parameters, right? So it maps 10 to DBM and 3 to SR. So DBM turns out to be 10 and SR turns out to be 3, and we subtract 10 minus 3 is 7. So it's asking you what does H1 of K crew render. So it's 10 minus 3 is 7. Okay, so that's the answer for this. So 7 here. Make sense? You'll get something similar to this, right? That this is asking you, do you know how links work, right? Do you know how to parse parameters from the URL, right? Do you know how to declare path parameters, right? Do you know the mapping to the root, right? Let's see, question in chat. Does it work even without parse int? Parse int. Yes, because it's a subtraction. If this were a plus, then these would be strings, and it would be a string concatenation. Okay. But yeah, so if this is an arithmetic operation like division, multiplication, subtraction, those are unequivocally convert these to be integers. It parses it into integers. It casts them into integers. If it's a plus operator, then it's not clear, right? It would be treated like as a string concatenation. But in my options for the possible answers, I would put both as good right answers, right? If you consider it to be a string concatenation, I would mark it correct. If you consider it to be an arithmetic addition, then I would mark it correct as well. Consider the following reducer. So, okay, so this is an old style reducer. I mean, they are still supported. Redux still supports these old style reducers. But I would use the new syntax, right, where we would say we would create a slice, right, and these would be functions. So this would be a function that adds 6, another function that subtracts 6. So this and so they would be dispatched, right, to do one or the other. But this is the old style reducers. We're not going to do the old style reducers. Instead, we're going to do the new style reducers using slicers, right? Use slice, and then you get to give it the name of the slice. You give it the reducers, right? The functions, right? So we're not using the old style reducers. Yeah, not old style. Let's see. So this is an example of using local state, right, where it's a little puzzle asking you what happens when you click these buttons, multiple times, right? So you absolutely can expect, something like this. I use random names for the variables, because if I use the actual names of the variables, you would know exactly what this does, right away. And so here I'm forcing you to go through the code and actually run it and see if you understand what how the onClick works, right? Of calling a function, of how the setters of state management works, right? How the initialization works. And here's the typo. It is missing a curly bracket. I'm not going to deliberately try to fool you by asking things that are obviously syntactically incorrect. I might try to fool you into maybe putting here square brackets, for instance. Well, no, I'm sorry, square brackets would not be anything wrong, right? But for instance, we have used destructors, right, as parameters in function, right, for destructing an object that's being passed as an argument. So I might ask you questions about obvious syntactical questions on whether hey, is this the correct syntax or is that the correct syntax, right? So when I'm asking about syntax, the question will be obviously about syntax, right? This question, even though this is a typo, obviously, that I missed a curly bracket, is not me trying to fool you into say, ha, gotcha, you didn't see that it was missing a curly bracket. No, I'm not. I will not ask questions like that. Right. Those questions about syntax will be clearly about syntax. Where sometimes I would use, square brackets where I'm supposed to be using curly brackets. But it will be obvious, right, that you say, huh, how is the syntax? Is this syntax correct? And you have to think about it, and it'll be a syntax question. Let's see. So this also is testing your understanding of the spreader operator. Notice that it's copying the old value of RZG, which is this, right? And then it's overriding, right, the value of that by appending or adding, right, some value to that object, right? So let's see what this does. Let's see. It declares two buttons, and it declares an H1. So it's asking you. Okay, so look at the code below. What happens to H1? What does H1 display after clicking this button 6 times and this other button, right, pressing it 4 times? What happens in that order? So first we click one of them 6 times. So we click this 6 times. So what happens when we click this 6 times? Let's see. So let's see. So we have an object that has a property equal to 6, and then we read it into RZG. So RZG's initial value is this here. And it says, okay, well, if you click CWC 6 times, it's going to copy the old objects over, so it's copying 6. But then it's going to override that value by looking at the old value plus 6. So from 6 goes up to 12. 6 times, I'm guessing that would become 36. Right? So at the end, this becomes 36. Okay? But then it says, what happens if you click on this one 4 times? Right? So looks like we're going to subtract from 36. We're going to subtract 4 times. Right? So 4 times 4 times, that's 16. So it's basically 36 minus 16. It's 20. Right? So this value is 20 here. That's what it renders, 20. So you can expect puzzles like that, right? That test your understanding of the setters, of function calls, of overriding, of spreader, initialization as objects, things like that. There's another question about reducers using the old syntax. Again, no questions using the old syntax, but make sure. And again, it's a puzzle, right? That clicking on a particular button, right? It's going to dispatch, right? It's going to dispatch. Also, notice here the syntax of using dispatch. See that? Use dispatch, and I assigned it to a variable called VA. Careful, right? Because you might be accustomed to us using dispatch all the time, right? We say use dispatch, and then we assign it to a variable called dispatch. It doesn't have to be called dispatch, right? It could be called whatever we want. Here I called it VA, and I'm dispatching this to the reducer, right? Again, this is using the old syntax. Using the old syntax for the dispatch. This is the same, right? So you select. Remember, you select allows you to parse elements from the state from the particular reducer, and then right, this is the overall state of that reducer. Typically, we wrap this in a curly brackets so that we can destruct properties from the state that we pull out. So this is asking, well, what happens when you click this several times, blah blah blah, right? And so when you dispatch, it goes out to the reducer, right? It gets updated, then it comes back, right? And then when you do the selector, right, you get the state back, and then you display it, right? So yeah, you can expect a question such as this. All right. Another question about routing, right? That we have 2 links, A, B, C, and D, E, F. And we have here 2 routes, right, that match those 2 links, right? That if we click on one of them, right, it's going to render a component A. If I click the other one, it renders component B. And A and B, what they do is that they parse the parameters, right? And but whereas one of them adds, right, the values, the other one subtracts. And here's the problem of whether this should be considered a string concatenation or arithmetic addition, right? So strictly speaking, this is going to be a string concatenation. But if you interpret it as an arithmetic operator, I'll take that as well. So this was a CD. Was 7 minus 5, so that's 2 here. And if I click on ABC, then it's 2 plus 3. It's either 23 or 5, right? I'll accept both. Fill in the blanks. Okay, so this is focusing more on the second half of the semester where we play around with Mongoose. Okay, so I'll typically give you either ask you to declare a schema or I'll give you a schema. So here's a schema engineer that has several properties. Now these were randomly generated, so some of these words and phrases won't make any sense. So here's an engineer with fields, business analysts, issue, and apricots. Again, this was dynamically, randomly generated. Your assignment will be randomly generated, so don't get too hung up on the actual pieces of text. I tried it both ways. Some students preferred random actual words, and other students preferred just random, gibberish text. There's no clear winner. So we have an engineer that has a string property, a numeric property, and another string property. So it's asking you, well, what if I want to retrieve a document whose field business analyst is equal to topic? How would I do that? So notice the question says single document. So careful, right? Careful, because we have quite a few functions in Mongoose to retrieve either individual documents or an array of documents. Okay, so careful. This is asking for a single document. Okay, so it can't be find, because find always returns an array of objects. Okay, so it cannot be find. So it's not project.find, right? It's a single document. So it must be either find one or find by ID. Both of them return a single document, right? Outside of the array, without an array, just a single object, right? So it must be one or the other. Now this is so this one has to be either find one or find by ID. Now it can't be find by ID because notice that it's saying where this field business analyst is equal to the unique value topic, presumably, and it'll return that one document, right? So it's not an ID, it's not a primary key. Nobody told us that the primary key is business analyst. So I'm gonna guess that it's not a primary key. It's just any field in the schema, right? This one right here. So it must be find one. Find one allows you to specify what field or which fields to filter and identify that one document, right? So the answer here is find one, business analyst equals to topic. Okay. All right. So a couple. So here's another one, right? Find fill in the blanks below, blah blah blah. Complete the snippet below. Given Mongoose. So this is a Mongoose model created as follows, right? So with this schema, right, saying there's a field called strawberry, another field called carrot, another field called apple, with data type string, date, and date. Again, all these were generated dynamically, randomly. So it's retrieving a document whose primary key, okay, careful here, right? It says primary key is equal to due date. So yeah, so this one is different than one before, where none of these were primary keys, but this is primary key. So we're telling you that the primary key, we're just saying that the primary key is equal to that value, right? So, but notice that it's not any one of these, right? It's not any one of these. We could have said, okay, so strawberry is the primary key, but we didn't. So the primary key is the underscore ID still, right? So if you want to retrieve my primary key, right, there's only one. Well, you can do it two ways, right? You can do find one like we did before, find one, and then this would be underscore ID, right, equal to whatever value you want to match it. So find one underscore ID and then the value, right? But notice the fields here. They're giving us obviously one placeholder for the finder, but then for the other pattern here, they're giving you just one blank. So it can't be find one, right? I can't use find one because find one requires an object, right? Where value is equal to the value of the ID is equal to the value that you pass in, right? So this must be find by ID, right? So one has to be find by ID. It's the only one that matches. And then here you provide the ID, which is due date. Okay. Fill in the blanks below to complete the code snippet. Only use, okay. Given Mongoose model criteria, blah, blah. Okay, so we're giving you the model for this schema, where we say project has the following fields. Question on the chart. Check. On MongoDB, can more than one object have the same? No, can't, right? Underscore ID is by definition a unique, right? All primary keys in a database are by definition unique. Yep. So yeah, given Mongoose model criteria, okay, so the model is called criteria. The Mongoose model is called criteria. So it's X, Y, Z, whatever, right? Based off of this schema project we have with fields training, professor, and school. So okay, so I want to retrieve a document whose field training, right, is equal to topic, right? So that's simple, right? So 2 must be training and 3 must be topic. And it says all documents, right? So this must be find all, right? Where presumably training is the field training is not unique, right? Right, you can have multiple values, and so it'll come back with all the values or all the records whose training is equal to topic. Okay. Fill in the blank below to complete the code snippet. Consider the following Mongoose schema. So okay, so we have a notice again, random, right? The field, the name of the schema is Mango, and the fields are homework, revision, and training, right? Again, randomly generated. So create a model called sum model, right? Using the schema stored in the so the schema shown here is stored in exam.js, right? So we give you the code. Also notice it's using the old JavaScript syntax require. Today we almost exclusively use ES6. So this would be import pineapple, from Mongoose. Okay. So yeah, I get. So today you would have to say, you have to say, import star as pineapple from Mongoose. So basically, I am renaming Mongoose here in the import, right? So this is somewhat tricky. Right? You can rename things in ES6, right? When you import stuff using the as operator, right? As, right? So it would be, import Mongoose as pineapple from Mongoose, and then we're importing strawberry from exam. So the question is, consider create a Mongoose model. So we have to create a model. So you would use the mongoose.model. But Mongoose here is called pineapple. So this would read pineapple model. The name of the model has to be unique, right? And then the schema. The schema is strawberry, right? So again, pineapple.model, sum model, strawberry. Right, so those are the 3 fields to fill out there. So fill in the blank below to complete use like declare Mongoose schema with a field topic of type string. Okay, so we already declared several other things here, right? Like we're declaring schema. There's the topic field is of type string, so we have to declare 3 as string. That stores this document to a collection called deliverables, right? So this must be collections, and then deliverables, and this is mongoose.schema, right? And so you fill that out. Let's look at 13. Fill in the blanks below to complete blah, blah, blah. Only use okay. Declare mongoose schema. So here we're declaring the schema with a field called revision of type date, right? So this would be, Mongoose. Oh, okay, so Mongoose, I renamed it to be homework. So this will be, homework dot schema, and then the field, the lowly field is revision, and then the date is the type, right? Let's see. Look up question 14. Consider the following. So we have a quiz, a schema that has fields deadline, mango, and student. And then it asks you, which of the following deletes a document whose field is that? Okay, so this is going over database commands. So command line interactions. This exam was made prior to us having Mongo Compass, right? So we did everything at the command line. Since we have been covering Mongo Atlas and Mongo Compass, we're not going to require you to know command line operations, right? So this is not required that you know them. More command line operations, more. Really? Wait, did I added a whole bunch of other questions that don't use this? Wait. Can't find. Anyway, it would be a Mongo question, right? It would be a Mongo question that would ask you, can you insert, can you delete, can you retrieve? Question in the chat. But Mongo Quiz has similar questions last time. Oh, okay, yeah. So exactly, the Mongo Quiz is a very good example of what you can expect. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I remember writing these questions now. This is where they go. They weren't here. Yeah. So you'll be asked, right? So what if I want to ask using a find or find one or find by ID, or do an update or delete, right? Or inserting new documents. So you can expect similar types of questions from what you saw on the quiz last weekend. Yes, this last weekend. Okay, good. Thank you. So database. Let's see a question in the chat. Will we be able to view the answer soon? Yes. I believe everybody's done. I will make it available tonight. Version, yeah. So same questions. Okay. Then some questions about Node, right? So where we're going to be asking you, whether you know how to declare gets or posts or puts or deletes, right, on the Node.js using Express. So here's an example where we are passing. Oops. Oh, no. There we go. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, actually, let me work my way backwards, right, from the bottom up. So yeah, so there will be questions on acronyms. Make sure you know your acronyms, right? What does CSS stand for? What does HTML stand for? What DOM stand for? Single page applications, SPA, right? So make sure you know your acronyms. HTML, HTTP, JSON, right? So yeah, so here's a question on Node.js. Here we have so consider the following HTTP endpoint. It says a client user interface sends an HTTP request with data encoded in the HTTP body. So that gives you a clue, right? It's encoded in the HTTP body. So already it cannot be get, right? So it needs to be either post or put, right? And then the server responds with the new data inserted. So it's going to take the data that is in the body and it's going to insert it somewhere. We don't know, right? So fill in the blanks to implement the following use case. Add a new carrot to a banana whose ID is 1067, right? Again, these nouns were generated randomly, right? So it's like XYZ or whatever, or ABC. So it has to be post because you are creating new data. Yes. Then this is a URL, obviously, right? That's the URL. We're going to encode. Looks like we're going to put something in there. We'll see that in a minute. This has to be request response, right? This is a handler. Now notice that I'm not going to use the names REQ and RES. So careful. I might use an entirely different set of characters, right? So let's see. Let's take a look at this. So this is banana ID. So that kind of gives me a clue that we are encoding the ID of the banana, right, as part of the URL, right? So this must be probably params, no? Params. So mhj.params. So this must be the request, right? REQ. So 3 must be REQ, and 2 must be colon. Careful, colon banana ID. Although I do tell you not to use colons, right, or commas or periods. The correct thing would be that this is right colon banana ID. But please don't use special characters, single quotes, double quotes, none of that. Otherwise, it'll confuse the automatic grader. So yeah, so that's our REQ, which here we refer to as MHT. Okay, so then notice that this is going to go out to some service, going to insert something, insert carrot into banana, whatever, right? And then when it comes back, then it comes back and with something.json. So I bet that is the response, right? That's the response. So 4 must be the response, right? So it's RWLJ. So 4 is RWLJ. Let's see, question in the chat. Since a question mentions no colons, answer for 2 should not have colons. Yes, please do not use colons. It confuses the autograder. So yeah, please don't use punctuations. Well, unless it's absolute necessary, and I explicitly tell you to use quotations, or colons, or periods, or whatever. But here, I am explicitly asking you not to use quotations and punctuations, because I know a lot of people are going to want to add a colon there, and that would screw up my autograder. Right, then I have to go in manually and fix it, and that's error prone. So please don't use unless I explicitly tell you. Yeah, so that's that is the parameter. So there's params, that's the request, the response. So 8. Okay, so 8 has to be what? 8 has to be new current, right? Because, right, I mean, that's the only thing that is declared here that we can send back. So it's new current. So this is what is this? Insert blah 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 into caret. Okay, so caret is this. So this must be what? This must be the body, right? The body. So this is probably body, right? And 6 must be PJGZR. So 6 is what we're retrieving the ID. Here's the ID, and here's what's being inserted into that ID. Okay. All right. Let's go. What does JSON stand for? Blah blah blah. DOM. Yada yada yada. Okay. Oh, we were going backwards. Sorry. So we did that. Let's see what else. Blanks. Okay. Consider the following snippet. All right. Again, this is another express question. We do a get. And we have 2 paths there, 1 and 2. And then the handler. So this must be the REQ, obviously, right? This is the response, KKJ. And so the question is, fill in the blanks above. So the node server responds hello, joy, JOI, to the following HTTP request. So again, that joy is random. All right. So careful, right? Make sure you're only looking at your exam, right? If you mistakenly copy from somebody else's exam the wrong answer, because you might have looked over somebody else's shoulder, this will catch it, right? Because you copied from someone else. So please do your work individually. Okay, so fill in the blanks above. So response hello joy. All right, so this is the response here, obviously, right? So this is the response res, and I'm sending back. It is a string, so this would be just send. So this would be, KKJ is the response, dot send, and then 8 needs to say hello joy. But let's see. What do we have before this? We have a Zol. Okay, here's where we get the string. There we go. So the joy actually is parsed from the URL. See that? It's hello, and then we concatenate whatever we retrieve here, right? And so what 5 is the Zol here, which we are parsing it from the parameters. So this param, so BQP params Zol, which is the name of joy, right? So this would be joy. So it'd be Zol here, okay? And now we have to pass that in as an argument, right? As a parameter. So FEB, so here's a pattern, right? FEB joy. So this has to be FEB, and this has to be colon the parameter colon ZOL. You know? So colon ZOL, because that's the parameters that we're parsing from there. Right? So we get colon ZOL, right, which maps to joy, which we then use to say hello to joy. Okay. Again, play around with it. All right. Okay. So there were quite a few fill in the blanks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we're going back. Okay. So these were all the database questions that are going to be converted into Mongoose questions, right? That are similar to the questions in the quiz. Now, something that's missing here, just like you have the express receiving the request from the from the client. Notice that we have no questions here on the client sending a request, right, using Axios or using thunks. Okay, so that's not listed here, but that is going to be in the exam. How many questions we'll have? Similar to this, about 25, at most 30. Yeah, this was 31, but yeah, at most 30. Yes. So yeah, something that is not listed here is thunk questions, right? Of the client sending a request to the server, but that definitely is going to be in the exam, and also asynchronous thunks, right? That have the fulfilled, and for that, it'll probably be a little puzzle, right, of clicking something and the going out to the server, and the server then responding from the controller, and then making its way back to the reducer, right, and then we select it and then render on the screen. It'll be something simple, right, that fits in a question, right, but it'll be something complete so that you can demonstrate that you understand, right, that we dispatch to the thunk. The thunk calls the service goes out to the controller does some work, responds, right, goes back to the service, and the client goes back to the thunk, and that eventually makes it into the asynchronous reducer, right, in the dot fulfilled. Okay, and then we populate the state. Once you populate the state, right, then the component can use the selector, right, to extract data from the selector, right, and then display it in the screen. Right? Yeah, so that's the only thing that was not listed here. Probably no CSS questions. No CSS questions, no HTML questions. Yeah, there's not enough space to go. I mean, obviously you need to understand HTML to understand some of these questions, obviously. But I mean, they're not going to be any specifically HTML questions like, form questions, or attribute questions, or styling questions, right, where you have to change the border or the radius, or the background, foreground color. None of that. So from from JavaScript on. So the questions will cover the whole semester or only after the midterm. So I'll just say that it won't cover the first 3-4 assignments. So the first assignment was HTML. The second one was CSS. The third was jQuery. So no jQuery. And the fourth was React. So from React on, right? So we did React, we did Reducer. That was in the first half of the semester. So that definitely you can still expect that. Most questions are going to be Reducer questions. Clicking here, clicking there, and how the state changes over time. And then most just focused on the server, thunks, database questions. Okay. All right, I'm gonna open up to questions. See if anybody has any questions.
Just to confirm what you said at the beginning of the evening here, is that we can be running the final project locally when we do our demo.
Yes. Required to use session. Yes, right. Yeah, that's the only way that you can log in and have multiple folks have logged in at the same time. yeah, first we had demonstrated using it with a current user with a single variable, but that only works with one user, right? Yes. Office hours tomorrow at 8. When you will be going to post final project check sheet? Oh, yes, I have that actually. Let me make that available to you. And we need it so that just to make sure that we know, who's who in which project, especially because there are some teams that have team members from different sections. So we want for you to fill out those forms and make sure that we know who's on who. Which student from what sections are in what teams in what other sections. So yeah, I'll share with that. I'll share it soon with you. All right. Is there not anything else? I'm not feeling very well today. I think my family caught something over the weekend. My daughter's in bed, can't, coughing and whatnot. I'm just trying not to feel too hot. But other than that, I still be available over office hours for the next several days. And you please, come out if you need help. Other than that, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you found this helpful. And I hope you had fun building stuff. And no class on Wednesday. So prepare for the final exam. So it's been a blast. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.